The crowd remained silent for a long time after Quan finished speaking. Some of the aliens looked confused. Others appeared thoughtful. A few had expressions that might have been sadness, though their faces were so different from human faces that Quan could not be certain. Finally, Elder Veltara spoke. "I need to sit down properly," she said. She moved to a bench near Quan's booth. Several other aliens joined her. Some sat on the floor. Others simply stood very still. The elderly Quinari looked at Quan for a long moment. "I have been alive for over 800 years," she said. "In that time, I have collected thousands of artifacts. Each one represents what I believed was significance, what I believed was worth preserving and studying." She gestured around at the crowd. We all believed that importance came from grand events, from moments that changed worlds, from decisions made by leaders that affected billions. We searched the galaxy for objects that witnessed these moments. We paid fortunes for them. We studied them. We built museums to house them. Her crest feathers trembled slightly, but we missed something. We missed what you have shown us today. A consortium archivist stepped forward. His species was known for recording history. "I need to understand this clearly," he said. "Your species creates temporal density through emotional commitment? Through daily choices to maintain a bond?" "I think so," Quan said, though I did not know that was what we were doing. We were just living our lives. The archivist's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. "This changes our understanding of significance. We have been measuring importance by scope, by how many people were affected, by how much changed. But you are suggesting that importance can also be measured by depth, by how much something mattered to even just two individuals." Hana nodded. "Yes. To the rest of the galaxy, Quan and Yuna's life was ordinary, unremarkable, but to them every moment was profound. Every day mattered, and the band witnessed all of it." A young Torvin raised his hand like a student. "But how do you survive this?" he asked. "If you bond so deeply and then lose your partner, how do you continue? Does it not break you?" Quan looked at the young alien. He saw genuine concern in those strange eyes. "It almost did break me," he admitted. "After Yuna died, I did not know what to do. I could not stay in our apartment. Everything there reminded me of her. The coffee maker, the balcony garden, the books she loved. Even the air seemed to hold her memory." He touched the band on his finger. "So I sold everything. I took the money and left Earth. I joined a merchant ship crew. I thought if I went far enough away, the pain would lessen." "Did it?" Elder Veltara asked softly. "No," Quan said. "The pain followed me, because it is not about the place. It is about the empty space where she used to be. I carried that space inside me wherever I went." He looked around at all the watching faces, but then I realized something. The pain existed because the love was real. Because those 43 years mattered. If I wanted to stop hurting, I would have to forget. I would have to pretend those years meant nothing. And I could not do that, so you chose to keep the pain? Amanthi sounded confused. "I chose to keep the love," Quan corrected. "The pain is just proof that the love existed. And yes, it is worth it. Every day I wake up and my hand feels heavy with this band. I remember breakfasts and rainstorms and dances in our kitchen. I remember a woman who chose me and who I chose back. Every single day for 43 years. Several aliens made sounds that their translators could not interpret. But Quan felt their meaning. Understanding, sympathy, recognition. An elderly Manthi stepped forward. Her skin was faded to light blue, showing her age. "I lost my bonded partner 3 years ago," she said quietly. "In my species, we are matched by computers when we are young. I never questioned it. We raised offspring together. We fulfilled our social duties. When my partner died, I felt relief that my obligations were complete." She paused, looking at Quan. "But now I wonder, did we miss something? Did we follow logic so completely that we forgot to choose each other? To matter to each other the way you describe?" Quan did not know how to answer that. Hana spoke instead. "I do not think any species' way is wrong," she said gently. "Different species need different things. But for humans, choice is important. The ability to say, 'I do not have to love you, but I do anyway,' gives meaning to the love." Elder Veltara stood up slowly. She approached Quan's booth one more time. "I would like to withdraw my offer of money and artifacts," she said formally. "I understand now that I could never possess what you have. Your band is not an artifact. It is a promise that was kept. a life that was lived, a love that was real. She bowed her head, which in Quinari culture was a sign of deep respect. Thank you for sharing your story. In 800 years I have learned many things, but today I learned what it means to be human, to love completely, to choose someone, to keep choosing them every day, even knowing that time is limited and loss is inevitable. Other aliens began to move. Some approached Quan's booth to thank him. Others stood in small groups discussing what they had heard. A few simply left quietly, lost in their own thoughts. The consortium archivist asked permission to record the conversation for their historical files. This is too important to lose, he explained. Humanity has taught us something today. About value, about significance, about what it means to matter. Quan agreed, though he still felt overwhelmed by all the attention. He had only told a simple story about his life. About Yuna, about their small apartment and their ordinary days. He did not understand why it affected everyone so deeply. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Elder Veltara lingered. She looked at the items on Quan's booth. The photographs, the letters, the small wooden carvings. These are all stories, are they not? She asked. Each one represents someone's life, someone's love, someone's moments of choosing to matter to another being. Yes, Quan said, I sell human memories, human connections, not because they are rare or valuable, but because they are real. Elder Veltara picked up an old photograph. It showed a young couple standing in front of a house. They were smiling. Their hands were linked together. I would like to purchase this, she said, not for my collection, but to remember. To remember that the greatest moments are not always the ones that shake planets or change governments. Sometimes they are two people holding hands. Sometimes they are breakfast conversations. Sometimes they are promises kept across decades. Quan sold her the photograph for 5 credits. She paid with a smile. As the station slowly returned to normal, Hana put her hand on Quan's shoulder. Are you all right? She asked. He nodded. I think so. I did not expect any of this. You told them about love, Hana said. About human love. About what we are at our best. That we can take ordinary lives and fill them with meaning through our choices, through our commitment to each other. Quan looked at the band on his finger one more time. The simple gold caught the station's lights. He could see his reflection in its worn surface. Do you think she would have liked this? He asked. Yuna, do you think she would have wanted me to tell our story? Hana smiled. I think she would have said your life together was not special. That it was just life, just ordinary days. That is what makes it special, Quan said quietly. That is what makes it human. Across the station, in different shops and restaurants and ships, the aliens who had listened to Quan's story carried his words with them. They thought about significance in new ways, about the weight of daily choices, about love that exists not because it must, but because someone chose it. And in a small booth selling Earth memorabilia, a middle-aged man wore a simple golden band that had witnessed 43 years of choosing love, of building meaning from ordinary moments, of proving that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is not found in battles or discoveries or grand political moments. Sometimes it is found in two people sharing breakfast, holding hands during storms, dancing in kitchens, choosing each other every single day. Because that is what it means to be human, to love knowing it will hurt, to bond knowing time is limited, and to believe every single time that it is worth it. The band on Quan's finger gleamed softly, and somewhere in his memory, Yuna smiled. Quan's voice grew softer as he continued his story. The crowd around his booth had grown even larger. Word had spread through the station. Aliens stopped their shopping and business to listen. Even the Manthi traders across the walkway had closed their booth to come here. After we married, life went on, Quan said. We both still worked. I still processed shipping data. Yuna still managed the bookstore. We lived in the same small apartment. From the outside, nothing changed, but everything was different. A young academic raised her hand. How was it different if nothing changed? Quan thought about how to explain. Before I woke up alone, I ate breakfast alone. I came home to an empty apartment. After we married, I woke up next to someone who was happy to see me. We ate breakfast together. We talked about small things, what we would do that day, what we wanted for dinner, whether we should buy new towels because ours were getting old. These are important discussions. A Peltari sounded doubtful. To us they were, Quan said. Because we were building a life together. Every small decision was made together. Every small moment was shared, Hannah added. Humans find meaning in patterns, in rituals, in doing small things the same way because they become part of our connection with each other. Quan nodded. Every morning, Yuna made coffee. She always made it too strong, and I always added too much sugar. She teased me about it. I teased her about how she read the news while eating, getting crumbs on the pages. These were our morning patterns, our small ways of being together. Elder Veltara tilted her head. And the band witnessed these moments? These breakfast conversations and teasing? Yes, Quan said. Every single one. For 43 years. He looked down at his hand at the worn gold. This band was there when I burned dinner 3 nights in a row trying to learn Yuna's mother's recipe. It was there when she held my hand at my father's funeral. It was there during movie nights when we argued about which film to watch. It was there when we danced in our kitchen to no music, just because we felt like dancing. The crowd listened intently. Some had pulled out recording devices. They were documenting this conversation like it was an important historical event. We tried to have children, Quan continued. His voice caught slightly. For years we tried, but it did not happen. We went to doctors. They said it was unlikely we could. Yuna cried for 3 days. I held her. This band was there for that too. That must have been difficult, Elder Veltara said gently. It was, Quan agreed. But we decided we were enough for each other. We did not need children to be complete. Some humans do. We did not. We had each other and that was sufficient. A Torvin stepped forward. I study human culture, she said. Your species often defines success by reproduction, by passing on genetics. Did you not feel you had failed? Quan considered the question. Maybe at first. But then we realized we could define our own success. We could choose what mattered to us. And what mattered was being together, being happy together. He smiled at a memory. Yuna started a small garden on our balcony. Just a few pots. She grew tomatoes and herbs. She would spend hours out there tending them. And I would sit and watch her or read or paint. I finally started painting. Badly, but Yuna said she loved every piece. This is success to you? The Torvin sounded genuinely curious. Growing plants? Painting badly? Yes, Quan said simply. Because we were doing what we wanted. We were making each other happy in small ways every day. Hannah spoke up. I think this is hard for other species to understand. Humans measure success differently than most. We value emotional satisfaction over logical achievement sometimes. We choose experiences over efficiency. An elderly Manthi in the crowd nodded slowly. I am beginning to see. You are saying the band holds temporal density. Not from one great moment, but from thousands of small moments accumulated over time. Exactly, Quan said. He felt relieved that someone understood. Every morning when I woke up and saw Yuna sleeping next to me, every time we held hands while walking, every time one of us was sick and the other brought soup, every argument we had and then resolved, every laugh, every tear, every quiet evening reading together. The band was there for all of it. He looked at the crowd. This band witnessed 43 years of breakfast. It witnessed 43 years of goodnight kisses. It witnessed us being young and then middle-aged and then old. It witnessed us learning who we were, not just as individuals but as partners. Elder Veltara's crest feathers had lowered completely. In her species, this meant deep thoughtfulness. I have studied artifacts for centuries, she said slowly. I have examined objects that witnessed emperors signing peace treaties. Objects present at the discovery of new dimensions. Objects from moments that changed entire civilizations. She paused. But I have never examined an object that witnessed what you describe. The daily choice to love someone. The accumulation of ordinary moments that create a lifetime. Quan felt his throat tighten with emotion. Most humans have objects like this. Maybe not wedding bands. Maybe photographs. Or letters. Or favorite coffee cups. We keep things that remind us of the people we love and the lives we have lived together. A young Quinari spoke up. But your bond ended, yes? You said 43 years. That implies it is over. The crowd went very quiet. Everyone looked at Quan. He had been expecting this question. It still hurt to answer. Yes, he said softly. 3 years ago, Yuna got sick, cancer. We tried treatments, but they did not work. She got weaker. I held her hand through all of it. This band touched her skin every day as she died. Several aliens made sounds of sympathy. Even species very different from humans understood loss. Near the end, she could not leave the hospital. Quan continued. His voice shook slightly. I slept in a chair next to her bed. I held her hand. And on the last day, she looked at me and asked, "It was a good life, was it not?" Tears ran down Quan's face now. He did not try to hide them. I told her yes. It was the best life I could have imagined. And she smiled. And then she was gone. The silence that followed was complete. Even the station's background noise seemed to have disappeared. Dozens of aliens from species that understood the universe in completely different ways all shared this moment of human grief. Elder Veltara stood slowly. She approached Quan's booth and looked at the band on his hand one more time. Now I understand, she said quietly. The temporal density does not come from your wedding day. It does not come from any single moment. It comes from every moment. From a lifetime of choosing love. From a lifetime of small decisions that added up to something greater than any single great deed. She looked at her scanner one last time, then put it away. This band witnessed the most powerful force in the universe, not the force of war or discovery or political power, but the force of two beings choosing to matter to each other, every single day, despite knowing it would end. Despite knowing that one of you would have to lose the other. Quan wiped his eyes. Yes, that is what humans do, Hana said to the crowd. We love knowing we will lose. We bond knowing it will hurt when it ends, and we believe it is worth it. Every time. Quan stared at the crowd of aliens sitting and standing around his booth. He had never told this story to anyone except Hana. The words felt heavy in his mouth, but everyone waited with such patient attention that he felt he owed them the truth. I need to explain something first, Quan said, about humans. About how we form bonds with each other. Hana stepped forward to help. She had a gift for teaching, for making complicated ideas simple. Most species in the galaxy choose partners through logical processes, she told the crowd. You use computers to match compatible genetics, or your biology tells you who to bond with, or your families arrange partnerships based on social benefits. Several aliens nodded. This was normal to them. Humans are different, Hana continued. We have something we call love. It is not logical. Our computers cannot predict it. It does not always make sense. We choose partners based on feelings, on wanting to be with someone even when logic says we should not. A Peltari in the crowd raised a tentacle. That sounds inefficient. How do you know if you are choosing correctly? We do not know, Quan admitted. That is what makes it terrifying. And wonderful. He looked down at his band again, gathering his thoughts. 50 years ago, I was 30 years old. I had a good job, but a lonely life. Every day I walked the same route to work, past the same buildings, the same shops, the same people. My life was comfortable but empty. The crowd listened in silence. Even the young ones had stopped fidgeting. Then one day I noticed a small bookstore I had walked past 1,000 times before. It was called Moonlight Books. The owner had put a new sign in the window advertising used novels, and behind the counter I saw her, Yuna. Quan smiled at the memory. His eyes grew distant. She was organizing books on a shelf. Her hair was tied back with a blue ribbon. She wore a simple sweater with one button missing, and when a customer asked her a question, she smiled. It was not a polite smile. Not the kind people give strangers. It was genuine, like she was truly happy to help. This made you choose her as a partner? Asked a young Quinari. Because she smiled? No, Quan said. It made me want to know her. To talk to her. To see if maybe, possibly, she might want to know me too. Elder Veltara's crest feathers quivered slightly. What did you do? Nothing, Quan admitted. I was too scared. So I walked past the store and went to work. But the next day I walked past again. And I saw her. For 6 months I walked past that bookstore every single day. I watched her through the window. I saw her help customers. Saw her reading during quiet moments. Saw her laughing with an elderly woman who came in every Tuesday. 6 months. A Torvin sounded shocked. That is a very long time to do nothing. Yes, Quan agreed. Humans often wait when we are afraid. We fear rejection. We fear looking foolish. We fear ruining something before it even begins, Hana added quietly. We fear hoping for something and being disappointed. Quan nodded. Exactly. But then one day it rained. Not gentle rain. A heavy storm that came suddenly. I did not have an umbrella. I was soaked within seconds. I stood outside the bookstore, water dripping from my clothes, and I saw Yuna inside. She was watching the rain through the window. And she was laughing. Just laughing at the storm like it was the most entertaining thing she had ever seen. He paused, remembering the moment clearly. Something broke inside me, or maybe something clicked into place. I do not know. But I opened the door and walked into the bookstore. I was dripping water all over her clean floor, and I asked her the first thing that came to mind. I asked if she believed people could be happy. The crowd was completely still. Even the busy sounds of the station seemed far away. What did she say? Elder Veltara's voice was soft. She looked at me for a long moment, this wet stranger dripping on her floor asking strange questions. Then she said, I do not know about people in general, but I think we could be. Several aliens made sounds of confusion. Quan understood. It did not make sense unless you understood humans, unless you understood how sometimes the most important moments come from tiny, illogical choices. We talked for 3 hours that day, Quan continued. The storm passed. The sun came out. Customers came and went. And we just talked. About books. About rain. About lonely jobs and small apartments and whether the dumplings from the shop on 5th Street were better than the ones from 7th Street. This is courtship? Asked a Manthi trader. Discussing food? Yes, Hannah said with a smile. Human courtship is strange. We discuss everything and nothing. We look for signs that the other person thinks like we do, feels like we do. We try to find connection in small things. Quan nodded. After that day, I came to the bookstore every day after work. Sometimes I bought books. Sometimes I just talked to Yuna. We discussed stories and life and dreams. She told me she wanted to own a garden someday. I told her I wanted to learn to paint but was too embarrassed to try. 6 months later, she invited me to dinner at her apartment. She cooked jjigae, a type of Korean stew. It was too salty and the rice was slightly burned. It was the best meal I ever had. A few aliens looked confused. How could a badly cooked meal be good? Because she made it for me, Quan explained. Because we ate it together at her small table. Because we laughed about the burned rice. Because when I left that night, she kissed me on the cheek and asked if I would come back the next week. And did you? Elder Veltara asked. I came back the next day, Quan said. And the day after that. And the day after that. Within a month, I had moved into her apartment. It was even smaller than mine. We had to share a tiny closet. Our bed barely fit in the bedroom, but we were happy. He touched the band on his finger again. 6 months after that, I took her to a park by the river, the same park where we had walked together dozens of times. I had this band in my pocket, and its matching partner for her. I had practiced what to say for weeks. What did you say? Someone in the crowd asked. Quan laughed. I do not remember. I was so nervous that all my practiced words disappeared. I think I said something like, Yuna, I want to wake up next to you every day for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? Marriage is a human bonding ceremony, Hannah explained to the crowd. It is a formal promise, a public declaration that you choose this person above all others. She said yes, Quan continued. She cried and laughed at the same time. And I put this band on her finger and she put its partner on mine. We made a promise. Not because biology forced us. Not because computers said we were compatible. But because we chose each other. Elder Veltara leaned forward. And this is when the band gained its temporal density? From this moment of promise? No, Quan said softly. That was just the beginning. The temporal density came from what happened next. From 43 years of keeping that promise. From 43 years of living together, of being together, of choosing each other every single day. The crowd stirred with interest. They wanted to hear more. Quan looked at all the alien faces watching him. Some had expressions he could read. Others were too different for him to understand. But they all waited for him to continue, and so he did. The crowd around Quan's booth had grown larger. At least 30 aliens now pressed close to see what was happening. Quan felt his throat tighten. He did not like being the center of attention. He never had. Even at his wedding, he had felt uncomfortable with everyone watching him and Yuna exchange their vows. Elder Veltara remained sitting on the floor. Her scanner still hummed softly in her hand. The device's screen showed patterns that shifted and changed, like waves on a beach. Other people in the crowd had pulled out their own devices. They all showed similar readings. A young Torvin pushed through the crowd. His species was known for collecting items with emotional meaning. He pointed at the band on Quan's hand with excitement. Is it true? The Torvin asked. Does that simple ring really carry temporal density? Before Quan could answer, Elder Veltara spoke. It does. I have never seen readings like this. Not in 700 years of study. More whispers spread through the crowd. Someone near the back shouted a question in a language Quan did not understand. His universal translator earpiece struggled to keep up with all the different voices talking at once. Quan looked around desperately. Where was Hana? She had gone to get supplies 2 hours ago. She should have been back by now. He needed her help. She was better at dealing with people than he was. A red-skinned Manthi trader stepped forward. She wore expensive robes covered in mathematical symbols. I will offer 5,000 credits for the band, she announced. The crowd went silent. 5,000 credits was enough money to buy a small ship. 10,000, another voice called out. This came from a collector Quan had seen around the station before. A wealthy Peltari who bought rare items. 15,000, 20,000, the numbers climbed higher and higher. Quan felt dizzy. He gripped the edge of his counter to steady himself. All this money being offered for a simple band that cost him less than 200 credits. It was madness. 50,000 credits. Everyone turned to look at Elder Veltara. She had stood up now. Her voice was calm but firm. I offer 50,000 credits, plus I will include 3 items from my personal collection. The buyer may choose which 3 they want, the crowd gasped. Elder Veltara's collection was famous throughout the galaxy. She owned some of the rarest artifacts in known space. Just 1 item from her collection would be worth more than 50,000 credits. I will add more if needed, she continued. 100,000 credits. 10 items from my collection. Name your price, human Quan. Quan looked down at his hand, at the worn golden band that had sat on his finger for 50 years. The metal had shaped itself to his skin over time. There was a small dent on one side where he had accidentally hit it against a doorframe 15 years ago, a tiny scratch on top from the time he had helped Yuna move a bookshelf. He thought about what that money could do. He could retire, buy a small house on a quiet planet, never have to work again. He could live comfortably for the rest of his life. But then he thought about the day he put this band on. The way Yuna's hands had shaken as she placed its matching partner on his finger. The promise they had made to each other, the life they had built together. No, Quan said quietly, no. Elder Veltara tilted her head. Did you not hear my offer? I heard it. Quan's voice was stronger now. And I am grateful. But no, I am sorry. This band is not for sale. Not for any amount of money. The crowd erupted in shocked chatter. The Manthi trader looked confused. But that is more money than you will make in 10 lifetimes, she said. Why would you refuse? Quan started to answer, but then he heard a familiar voice. Because it is worth more than that to him. He turned and felt relief wash over him. Hana pushed through the crowd carrying 2 bags of supplies. She was his age, with short gray hair and kind eyes. She had lost her husband 8 years ago. She understood what the band meant to Quan. Hana set down her bags and stood next to him behind the counter. She looked at Elder Veltara and the crowd of aliens pressing close. What is going on here? She asked Quan in Korean. Their translator earpieces could switch to private mode for conversations. Quan explained quickly. The scanner readings, the impossible temporal density, the offers of money. Hana listened and nodded slowly. Then she switched her translator back to public mode and addressed Elder Veltara. With respect, Elder, you must understand something about humans. We do not always make logical choices about our possessions. Sometimes we keep things that have no value to anyone else but mean everything to us. I am beginning to understand that, Elder Veltara replied. She studied Quan's face carefully. But I must know. How does a simple band, made of common metal purchased from an ordinary shop, come to hold such power? What great event did it witness? What moment of cosmic importance? The crowd leaned in. Everyone wanted to hear the answer. Quan felt his chest tighten again. These aliens wanted a grand story. They expected to hear about battles or treaties or the discovery of new worlds. They would be disappointed when they learned the truth. There was no great event, he said softly. No battle won? Asked a voice from the crowd. No. No peace treaty signed? No. No scientific discovery? No. Elder Veltara's crest feathers lowered in confusion. Then what? What could create such temporal density in a simple object? Quan looked at Hana. She gave him an encouraging nod. He took a deep breath. It witnessed a life, he said. My life, and the life of the woman I loved. The crowd went quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Curious rather than shocked. A young academic standing near the front raised his hand like a student in a classroom. Please explain. What is special about your life? Are you famous among humans? Did you achieve great things? Quan almost laughed. No, nothing like that. I was nobody special. I worked a regular job in Seoul. That is a city on Earth. I processed shipping data for a company. I lived in a small apartment. I had a very ordinary life. Then I do not understand, the academic said. Other aliens nodded in agreement. Elder Veltara held up a hand for silence. Let him finish. There is more to this story. There must be. Quan touched the band again. He could feel everyone's eyes on him. Waiting, expecting. 50 years ago I met a woman named Yuna, he began. She worked at a bookstore. And she changed everything. The station's lights hummed above them. Ships came and went from the docking arms. But in that moment around Quan's small booth, time seemed to stop. Dozens of aliens from different worlds with different cultures and different ways of understanding the universe, all waited to hear a simple human story. Elder Veltara sat down again. This time several other aliens joined her. They settled in to listen. Quan looked down at his hands, at the worn golden band, and he began to tell them about love. The Grand Nexus station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower, its arms stretched out in every direction, each one home to thousands of shops, restaurants, and meeting places. Ships from 100 different worlds docked here every day. Some were small personal crafts. Others were massive cargo haulers that could carry enough food to feed an entire planet. Quan wiped down the counter of his small booth for the third time that morning. He did not need to clean it again. The surface was already spotless, but his hands needed something to do. Business had been slow for the past week. Most travelers walked past his booth without stopping. They were looking for exotic alien goods or advanced technology. Quan sold items from Earth, old photographs, handwritten letters, small wooden carvings, things that told stories about human life. He was 45 years old now. His hair had started to turn gray at the temples. His face carried lines that came from smiling too much in his younger days and not enough in recent years. He had been working on Nexus Station for 3 years. Before that, he spent 2 years on a merchant ship. Before that, his life had been very different. Quan arranged a set of old postcards on the display table. Each one showed a different city on Earth: Seoul, Paris, New York, Cairo. The colors had faded with time, but that made them more valuable to collectors. At least that was what Hana told him. She was his business partner and the person who convinced him to start this booth in the first place. The station around him buzzed with activity. A group of Manthi traders argued loudly in the booth across the walkway. Their blue skin flashed different colors as they negotiated. 2 booths down, a Torvan family examined cooking equipment. The parents had 4 arms each and used all of them to test different tools at once. Their children, smaller versions with only 2 arms, chased each other between the booths. Quan watched them and felt a familiar ache in his chest. He touched the band on his left hand without thinking about it. The metal was warm from his skin. He had worn it for so long that he sometimes forgot it was there. But then he would see families or couples and his hand would move to touch it. To remember, the band was simple gold, nothing fancy. The design carved into it had worn down over the years. If someone looked closely, they could still see the pattern. Little symbols that meant forever. Quan remembered the day he bought it. The small jewelry shop in Seoul. The kind old man named Day who carved the patterns by hand. The nervous excitement in his stomach as he planned how to ask Yuna to marry him. "Excuse me, young merchant." The voice pulled Quan from his memories. He looked up and immediately straightened his posture. An elderly alien stood before his booth. She was Kunari, a bird-like species known throughout the galaxy for their intelligence and long lives. This one was clearly very old. Her feathers were more gray than brown. She wore robes that displayed 9 golden badges. Each badge represented a high academic honor. Quan had never seen anyone wearing more than 3. "How can I help you?" Quan asked. He tried to keep his voice steady. People like this did not usually visit his small booth. The Quinari did not answer right away. Her large eyes, still sharp despite her age, scanned his display. She looked at each item carefully. The photographs. The letters. The small music box that played an old Earth song. Then her gaze stopped on his left hand. She stared at the band on his finger. Quan felt uncomfortable under her intense stare. He started to move his hand under the counter, but the Quinari stepped closer. Her crest feathers rose up on her head. In her species, this meant shock or surprise. "That band," she said slowly. Her voice carried weight, like someone who had seen countless years pass. "May I examine it?" Quan's right hand immediately covered the band. "It is not for sale." "I thought as much." The Quinari pulled out a small device from her robes. Quan recognized it as a scanner, though not a legal one. These devices were banned on most stations. They could analyze objects in ways that regular scanners could not, but someone with her status would not be questioned. She pointed the device at his hand. The scanner made a soft humming sound. Its screen flickered with symbols and numbers that Quan could not read. The Quinari's eyes grew wider. Her crest feathers rose even higher. "Impossible," she whispered. "What is impossible?" Quan asked. He felt nervous now. Had he done something wrong? Was there a problem with the band? The Quinari looked from the scanner to Quan's face and back again. "Young human, I am called Elder Veltara. I have studied ancient artifacts for 700 of your years. I have examined relics from civilizations that existed before your species learned to make fire. I have held objects that witnessed the birth of stars." She paused and pointed at the band on his finger. "That band should not exist." Quan looked down at his hand. The simple golden band looked the same as always. A bit worn, a bit scratched. "Nothing special to anyone but him. I do not understand," he said. Elder Veltara moved closer to the counter. Other aliens walking past started to notice her. Some stopped to watch. A Quinari elder examining something was unusual enough to draw attention. "My scanner detects something we call temporal density," she explained. "It means an object has witnessed moments of great importance. Moments so powerful that they leave an imprint on the object itself. In all my centuries of study, I have only found 3 other objects with this property. All of them were created by species with advanced mental powers. All of them were designed specifically to capture important moments in time." She gestured to the band again. "But your band is simple, metal, human-made. Yet it radiates temporal density, stronger than objects 10,000 years old, stronger than the crown worn by the last Eternal, stronger than the crystal that ended the Great War of Proxima." More aliens had gathered now. They formed a small crowd around the booth. Quan heard whispers in a dozen different languages. He saw more scanners being pulled out. People were taking pictures. His heart beat faster. This was too much attention. He just wanted to sell a few items and be left alone with his memories. "There must be a mistake," Quan said. "This is just a wedding band. I bought it 50 years ago from a regular jewelry shop. It cost 200,000 won. That is about 180 credits." The crowd murmured louder. Elder Veltara's crest feathers quivered. "A wedding band," she repeated. "And you have worn it for 50 years?" "Yes, every day. Every single day." Elder Veltara was silent for a long moment. Then she did something that made everyone gasp. She slowly lowered herself to sit on the ground. Quinari almost never sat in public. It was considered a sign of being overwhelmed or deeply moved. "Young human," she said quietly, "I believe we need to talk about where you got this band, and what moments it has witnessed.